June 29th, 2013. It's time to review New Warriors number 1 and start in the most epic way possible. They came from all corners of the Marvel Universe. Mutants, Atlanteans, altered humans, and the technical-minded. Their job was to take on the street crime the Avengers never really handled. They were teens, and unlike DC's Teen Titans, this group was starting from the ground up. Teenagers becoming superheroes is nothing new, as decades before the comic came out, other teens became heroes, and later faces of the universe. By 1990, history repeated itself as young heroes were once again called upon to take their place among Earth's mightiest heroes. Their stories started small, and gradually the stakes became higher, and a new generation of heroes took center stage. They were called the New Warriors, and this is how their story began. Woo! That was epic. I almost sounded like Stan Lee for a second there. Roll the intro. As you might have guessed, I'm a little excited to be reviewing this comic. Shocking, right? Well, The New Warriors was one of my favorite comics of all time, so you can forgive me for being a little excited. And while Spider-Man and the X-Men were up there, it's The New Warriors that I identified with because I was a teenager growing up in the 90s. And here's where I start to feel old. I'm still young enough to take you kids on that newfangled Pokemon game you all play. Now get off my lawn. Darn kids. The New Warriors, if you recall from the FAQ I made, were created by Tom DeFalco and written by Fabian Nicieza, the man responsible for writing a ton of comics in the 90s. The book was billed as one starring a team of teenage heroes who weren't sidekicks like the Teen Titans, or affiliated with the core team, despite having a couple mutants around. In fact, a lot of the characters were in limbo before the book was published. The book was about young heroes making a name for themselves while dealing with several issues such as abuse, divorce, and more. Nicieza also pitched the book as a group that does superheroics and at the same time tried to address problems with the world while becoming a bit radical. They made mistakes and stumbled along the way, and while some antics may cause the ire of older heroes who say they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, they will learn and become heroes in their own right, despite the generation gap. Here's what he said about the team in an issue of Marvel Age. The New Warriors is a hard-line, hard-edged book. The characters carry a certain amount of antagonism or anger toward the way the world is right now. In the end, it's more a reflection of how teens saw the world in those days, and more or less even in today's world. Nicieza wanted the book to be a forerunner for young people to learn about the world, solve issues themselves, and at the same time have a ton of action, adventure, character, and humor while still having the theme of how to affect change in a drastically changing world. To change the world, you need to start somewhere. Let's find out how it all began in New Warriors number 1. Remember in the Giant-Size X-Men number 1 review where I said that this was a cover that became so iconic that it had many an homage? Well, the cover to New Warriors number 1 pays a fitting tribute to the cover, showing the 6 original New Warriors running at the reader. In the background, we have snippets of other classic Marvel covers, like Fantastic Four, X-Men, and hey, Giant-Sized X-Men number 1 is in there. As we pull back, we get a great look at our team. Firestar, Namorita, Night Thrasher, Marvel Boy, Speedball, and Kid Nova appear ready for action. I don't get why they renamed Nova Kid Nova either. Thankfully it was dropped. And speaking of dropping something, our opening shot is of the vigilante Night Thrasher dangling a youth over a rooftop in Queens. The black and red armored man looks fierce and almost Batman-like as he speaks to the struggling youth. He wants them to answer a simple question. Are you username LadiesMan217? No, we'll have none of that. Night Thrasher is actually demanding if the youth is or is not Richard Rider. Struggling, the youth replies yes, and in response, Night Thrasher drops him. Remember how I said Night Thrasher was kind of a jerk? It wasn't without merit. As he's falling, Ryder gets a rush of adrenaline, and suddenly he takes off into the sky, seconds before he became good friends with the pavement. The man called Nova is reborn. Rich expresses gratitude, and he asks Night Thrasher how he knew he had the powers still in him. Thrash simply says he didn't. You see? Total jerk. The reborn Nova charges after Night Thrasher, saying he could have killed him. In response, he says he only gave him the one thing he wanted more than anything in the world, and he wants something in return. A strange man dangles you off a roof in the dead of night and restarts your powers, and then wants something in return? Only in the Marvel Universe, true believers. We turn now to the following morning in front of Avengers Mansion, where a young man clad in black and white makes the scene. He is Marvel Boy, and he's hoping to join the ranks of the Avengers. He hovers over the property and is greeted by a high-tech security system. Geez, that must make mowing the lawn an adventure for Jarvis. After a brief scuffle, the security system identifies Marvel Boy as Vance Astro, member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Off-screen, Captain America shows up wanting answers, as Vance Astro was once an Avenger as well. Vance says that he is Vance Astrovic, and Cap explains how the Thing explained the situation to him. He says he's here to join the Avengers, and Cap says to wait a couple years, since they don't have the right training facilities. Shh! Spoilers! Vance berates himself for walking in like he owned the joint, and is greeted by Night Thrasher and Nova, who is now wearing a red and yellow suit resembling his classic costume. Night Thrasher then asks if he wants to join the team. Initiation, of course, requires me to drop you off at the tallest building I could find. If you don't mind, we'd like to take you to the Empire State Building now. Back in Queens, a company called Gene Tech is on the scene of a quiet neighborhood that's been run amok by ground soil contamination. Kids developed leukemia, and experts were called in. A class from Empire State University is also on the scene to observe the goings-on. Among the classmates is Namorita Prentice, cousin of Prince Namor of Atlantis. Nita asks if the noise causes a problem for the nearby community, and the professor calls over Walter Rosen, head of Gene Tech, who said there weren't any easy answers. He recognizes Nita as Namor's cousin, and says the answers will take care of themselves. Sure they will. Night Thrasher, in the meantime, is busy looking for more people he can throw off of buildings. Giving Rich and Vance much-needed exposition. Thrasher explains how his legal guardians encourage his one-man war against crime, while they manage his family's vast fortune. Speaking of whom, they enter, and Thrash explains that his parents were murdered, and that he will make all criminals pay for what they do. However, he needs help, and has his guardian Cord look up one more member of the team. Cord looks up the Massachusetts Academy Records, an institution that teaches mutants, much like Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. There, he looks up Angelica Jones, aka Firestar. Vance is shocked at how easy it was to break into the systems, and Rich explains that that must be how he found out about him via the Fantastic Four's records. Dwayne explains that they are way too advanced. Still demanding answers, Rich says that when he returned to Earth, he went to Reed Richards to get help in restoring his powers. Reed then shared the data with S.H.I.E.L.D., and Dwayne found out about him when they collapsed. He also saw that the report said his powers had a 36% chance in resurging. So there was a 64% chance of him becoming street pizza. I don't think I like your tactics very much, Dwayne. After explaining how the hot dog vendor outside Avengers Mansion tipped him off on Vance, Dwayne then calls Angelica's New Jersey home. Angel answers, and a mysterious voice says, "We know who you are, and we know what you can do, and so will the world." Basically, Dwayne is threatening the Ginger into joining the group. Really smooth. She rushes out of the window, and we get a look at our sixth new warrior, Robert Baldwin, aka Speedball. He's feeling kind of mopey since he has to go with his mom to the city, and hey, there may be a TV in it for him if he goes. Oh, parental bribery. I remember it well. Back at the contaminated park, Rosen shows off a high-tech thingamajig that's supposed to pinpoint the radioactive contaminants in the soil, analyze it, clean it, and apparently make huffing and puffing noises. Since this is the Marvel Universe, and things go wrong with science there every day, the techies discover something in the analysis casing struggling to break free. The thing inside the machine churns as Namorita rushes everyone to back up, and with a mighty roar, the creature inside the machine is revealed to be the former Herald of Galactus, Terrax, who proclaims that he is alive, and has returned, while Namorita prepares to face the monster. Night Thrasher, Nova, and Marvel Boy wait for Firestar to show up, when Nova questions his methods. Nova plans to stick around and figure the vigilante out, when a stream of microwave energy is fired at the group. Firestar is on the scene and she wants answers. Marvel Boy and Nova claim that it was Night Thrasher's idea. It was his idea, Red. Drop him off of a building and see if he can fly. Dwayne remains cool and collected and said that he wants her to join the group, to which Firestar says he could have at least asked. That would have been more polite. The ground begins to shake and Thrash says the group has to go see what's going on. It appears there is a disturbance in Queens. There's no way to get there fast enough with a helicopter, so the group would have to fly there, with Nova carrying Marvel Boy and Firestar carrying Night Thrasher. After he apologizes, of course. Firestar is not really sure if she can carry him all the way to Queens. She might accidentally drop him over the East River. Saucy redhead. I like her. I wonder how Namorita's doing. Nita seems to be holding her own against Terrax on a spectacular splash page, and he wonders if protecting the planet is so important to her that she'd risk her life. Since they're heading towards houses, Nita has to act fast. Her plan falls apart as Terrax swats her away like a fly. Nita probably figures it was a lame idea and wonders where her cousin and the Avengers are. Terrax creates an axe out of the ground he's controlling and goes for the kill, when suddenly a voice tells him to back off. This is gonna be good. Where's my popcorn? Elsewhere, Robbie is seeing a report on the news wondering who these brave new warriors who have burst onto the scene are. Impressed, Robbie tricks his mom into letting him go and help the teen heroes. Sneaking out, Robbie transforms into the kinetic energy-powered speedball and rushes off to save the day. In Queens, the new warriors struggle against Terrax as Firestar pours on the heat and Nita punches him while he is distracted. Coming in on a ridiculous skateboard, Night Thrasher blinds the alien with smoke bombs. Terrax laughs and throws Thrash, only to be caught by Marvel Boy. Rosen comes out of hiding and offers Night Thrasher a plan of attack while the others fight Terrax, and while he is distracted fighting Firestar, Namorita tackles him. Using her super strength, she lifts the former Herald up, setting Nova to knock him down, while calling her babe. Nita, of course, wonders if the human rocket is suicidal for calling her that. I'd have asked that too, honestly. Now where's that popcorn? Terrax tries to pull himself together as a sixth hero joins the fray. He is Speedball, and he's doing a really good job of bouncing off of the guy. Marvel Boy recognizes the hero and realizes that the kinetic field seems to have an effect on Terrax. Vance concentrates and uses his telekinetic field to encapsulate the bouncing ball of energy. Vance realizes that kinetic force, if pressurized, should be enough to take out Terrax. With a loud perfume, the mutant releases Speedball's kinetic energy at Terrax. Nice! Hey, I wonder if... Not now, not now. We've got a climax to go through. Terrax emerges from the rubble, and Speedball is none the worse for wear. Night Thrasher finishes his conversation with Rosen, and tells the group that the soil's replenishing Terrax's power. He starts to order Nova and Namorita around, when they get the picture already. They banter a bit and punch Terrax into space, where he explodes. Shocked, Nova and Nita believe that they killed Terrax and confront Thrash on the issue. He denies it and says that Rosen came up with the idea since sensors detected something off with the former Herald when they lifted him up before. It seemed Terrax was a disembodied sentient energy form that needed to feed on the soil, or some other weird technobabble. The young team wonders about the contaminated area when the Avengers arrive. Let's see if they give credit where credit is due. Cap says that they can take it from here, and Mr. Rosen rushes to greet them. The group, on the other hand, feels annoyed at being casually dismissed. Even Cap said that they seem to help the situation. Of course, this doesn't help the fact that Walter Rosen is sucking up to Captain America right here. The group discusses their respective rejections from the Avengers, and Speedball suggests teaming up. Thrash says that we don't need the Avengers, and suggests that the group become a team. And finally, on the last page, we have a homage to the Fantastic Four's team-up page, with the group bringing it together. This is awesome. Anyway, Speedball suggests that the group be called what he heard a reporter called them, the New Warriors. Imagine how the series would have turned out if the reporter called them something less flattering. Let's take a closer look at New Warriors #1. From cover to cover, you can say that this comic had many nods to classic Marvel stories. That's fine though. Why? Because as a whole, this story stands on its own, despite the subtle references to past works. New Warriors #1 doesn't beat us over the head with it being a Marvel book with teens in it. This book is more, much more than that. The stage has been set for future storylines such as Nova and Namorita's romance, as well as Marvel Boy and Firestar's, judging from the playful banter we saw, especially from Nita and Nova. And Thrash's past is very much the overarching story for the series' first few issues. The scene had been set, and judging from the personalities of the team, we as readers back then were interested in seeing what was going to happen next. As a standalone issue, the comic may seem a bit rushed, with the action taking up a good portion of the comic. This is fine in my opinion, as the action was good and needed to get the story going. First issues need to introduce the characters and a common threat for them to fight. They need to do a good job in trying to contain the introduction and a conflict in at least 30 pages or so, and this comic succeeds in this despite many things going on. It's not terribly bogged down. To me, it's at an even pace. Characters are introduced, there's banter, and a good reintroduction to characters long thought forgotten in Marvel's past. A conflict arises and a team is born once the day is saved. That is how you start a team book. If they were billed as the Young Avengers back then, I would have believed it, because of how similar the origin of the Avengers are to this book. Both teams included random people from around the Marvel Universe, and came together to fight a common threat. And both threats were more than what one hero could handle. Do the similarities end here? Who can say? It's still fun to see history sort of repeat itself in this way for a bunch of teenage heroes. And you could say that the Avengers appearing in this book was a good way to pass the torch to this new generation of heroes. I know Night Thrasher can come off as a jerk in this book for starting us off on the wrong foot. Don't get me wrong, he is. Thankfully he mellowed out, and became less and less like a Batman clone, and more like a man who wanted to do right by society. Especially after certain reveals that happen over the course of the comic. If anything, Night Thrasher is an outsider in a team he formed, where everyone has been either an established hero or a bit character in another book. The New Warriors would learn, like Diseases said in many interviews, that just because they have powers, do not automatically give them the right or responsibility to change the world for the better. They will try anyway. So, you could say with great power comes great responsibility. It's okay to pay homage to Stan Lee, you know? I'm sure you wouldn't mind. New Warriors #1 was great in that it set out what it wanted to do. Create an action piece and still have deep characters and character moments. Readers took to the book and enjoyed every minute of the action, romance, and drama, and we saw just how a legend could be made from the ground up. This comic showed that readers would expect action, like Diseases said, and mixed in would be tales of the heart that had been the hallmark of Marvel's comics for decades. Only this time, a new spin was put on it, as a new generation of heroes appeared on the scene, and I, like many readers, became engrossed with the epic that was about to unfold. Next time, I'll be covering the storyline that made this comic so memorable in the eyes of everyone who has read it. Until then, I'm Seafarer. Thanks for watching Comic Showcase, and I'll see you in the funny pages.